Okay, guys, hope you're all okay out there. Hope you're staying safe and well. We're carrying on to our next lesson. Just one or two things before I begin this tutorial, just while we're still all getting used to this online learning and distance learning stuff. First of all, if you're submitting prep to me, can you email it? Can you upload it directly to Google Classroom and not email me separately? It's easier to keep track of things there. I know there was some issues, and it's completely my fault about the form I asked you to do for prep last week. At this stage, those of you who submitted it to me, you will have received your result back. I tried resending the completed forms with some feedback in it back to you directly. It doesn't seem to have worked. So if you do want your feedback individually, please let me know, and I'll send it on to you. No problem at all. Most of you did very well. Well done. And we're going to carry on from there now today. Just to point out, these tutorials that I'm making for you here, they are limited to 15 minutes. The videos run out after 15 minutes. But as you'll see as we go through here, there's a lot of audio examples and video examples here that you'll have to watch. And this is where you're going to pause the tutorial to watch these videos. Now, one of the things that didn't occur to me last week was that if you're watching this on YouTube now, you can't actually play the YouTube video that's in my YouTube presentation. So what I've done is I've uploaded these presentations into the school Google Drive, and any handouts I'm giving you, any work for prep that I need you to look at will be in that Google Drive. And if you're not sure where it is, in your school email account, click on Google Drive, and you'll see a folder there. It's under the shared with me section. You'll see a folder there called remote education. Click on that and you'll see your year there. You click on your year, you then click into your subject, and you'll see all my work there. Okay, carrying on. So on to the next feature of music, instrumentation. This obviously means the instruments that are available to us in music. We're going to start off with instruments of the orchestra. Now I'm going to fly through this, guys, because to be honest, we did a lot of this before Christmas, and we're pretty well up on it. This is more a revision. So the instruments of the orchestra are divided into four what we call families or groups of instruments. We have strings, woodwind, brass, and percussion. The main string instruments: violin, viola, cello, double bass, and harp. Just again, important to realize these are not the only string instruments. There are, hundreds of other types of string instruments in the world. This is in a classical orchestra. These would be the main ones there. And again, the other side of that is you wouldn't always necessarily see all of these instruments there. It wouldn't be completely unusual for a harp not to be in a particular piece of music. Okay, so that's the string instruments, the main string instruments. The main woodwind instruments are flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon. You might recall from beforehand there are variations of these instruments that we also regularly see in the orchestra. For example, the flute, a small version of the flute is the piccolo, which plays higher notes. The oboe has a larger version of it called a cor anglais. The clarinet, there's a bass clarinet or an E-flat clarinet. We have a bassoon, there's a bigger version of the bassoon called the contrabassoon. These are optional instruments, not unusual to see those optional instruments there, but the four core woodwind instruments, it would be very unusual for an orchestral music to not have those four instruments of the woodwind family. Moving on, the main brass instruments: trumpet, trombone, French horn, tuba. Percussion. Now, percussion, just to recall, there are two different types of percussion instruments: tuned and untuned. And quite simply, a tuned percussion instrument is a percussion instrument that you can play a tune on, that has notes. And then non-tuned or untuned percussion is something that doesn't have a note. So example of tuned percussion instruments, as you can see there, is the glockenspiel, the xylophone, the vibraphone, timpani, otherwise known as kettle drums, although not so much anymore. That's an older kind of definition. And then untuned instrument: the snare drum, the bass drum, the triangle, the cymbals. But important to note, there are a lot more than this. Like, whereas I did say to you earlier, there are more stringed instruments, more woodwind instruments, and so on. There are thousands and thousands of percussion instruments. You couldn't list them all here. These are just the main ones that you'll always see. Okay, so this is the first of these videos that I refer to here. I'm not going to play this video now. This is Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf. We spent an awful lot of time doing this before Christmas. We don't need to go back over it. You're very familiar with it. However, the video is there. I would encourage you to watch it just for a little refresher. But you won't be able to watch it right here on YouTube with this. It is a YouTube video, but to watch it, you'll either have to look it up in a separate window, or go to the presentation in Google Drive. This presentation is available in Google Drive, just the slides from it. So you can just click play there and watch it in YouTube. Okay, so I would ask you, I'm going to pause it now. You could pause this tutorial now and watch that video just as a refresher. Likewise, this is another excellent, and I did this with you in class, is an excellent resource for all the instruments in the orchestra. All the main instruments in the orchestra are in this, and it goes through every single one of them one at a time. It gives you examples of what each one sounds like. It plays a short piece of music on each of these instruments. So again, pause this tutorial now and watch that video. Moving on, when we looked at Peter and the Wolf, when we studied Peter and the Wolf before Christmas, and you will remember, and again, you should have just watched that video in the tutorial. Each of the Woodwind family represented a character in the story. So, for example, the cat was the clarinet, the duck was the oboe, the bird was the flute, the grandfather was the bassoon, and then we had some of the brass instruments like the French horns were the wolves, and then in the percussion family, the timpani and bass drum were the hunters' rivals, and so on and so on. The string section, however, represented Peter. That was that tune. Ba 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 da ba 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 da ba 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 da 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 da. It didn't actually take each of the string instruments individually. Peter was represented by the entire string section. I just wanted to give you a few examples of those individual instruments playing here now. The first was the violin. So please pause the tutorial now and watch Schindler's List by John Williams. The next is the cello, and again at this point you will need to pause the tutorial and watch the video in a different window. That's Yo-Yo Ma playing the Bach Cello Suite No. 1 in G major. Probably the most famous cellist on the planet at the moment, and a piece of music that I'd say a lot of you will remember. Or will be familiar with. The double bass, again, the piece of music I've selected here to demonstrate the double bass is the Elephants from the Carnival of the Animals. You will notice as we go along, we spoke about this in class, that a lot of the stringed instruments, they look exactly the same as each other. It's their size that differentiates them. So the bigger the instrument gets, the lower the sound. So again, now please pause the video, pause this tutorial and watch that video. I didn't do any harp example there now. The harp, we have looked at that in class. So other families of instruments, the woodwind, brass, percussion, feature extensively in Peter and the Wolf, so refer to that piece if revision is required. The string family are only featured as a group in Peter and the Wolf, hence the individual examples in this tutorial. Just while you're wondering, I'm not now going to go through a different video for each of the other instruments of the orchestra. It's all covered in Peter and the Wolf. Okay, and then we are dealing with instrumentation here. It's not just orchestral instruments that we want to study here. We want to study non-orchestral instruments. For example, if any of you follow any bands or modern pop acts, you will see these instruments that I'm mentioning here everywhere. In fact, a lot of you, I'm sure, play some of these instruments. We've done a bit of ukulele in class, so it's very similar to the guitar. So the piano or keyboard, the guitar, the bass guitar, and the drums. For modern instruments here now. And the Beatles, who again I'm sure a lot of you would have heard of, you have definitely heard some Beatles music whether you realise it or not. The Beatles were a band who in the mid-60s with their producer George Martin started incorporating orchestral instruments into pop music. To really, really great effect. It was fantastic what they achieved with it. And they took what a lot of people thought was an old and boring style of music. I wouldn't necessarily agree with it, but they incorporated it into this exciting new kind of beat music or rock and roll music that was becoming popular in the 40s, 50s and 60s. And a few very good examples of that. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, there's a song by that title, but that's also the name of the full album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And all the way through that piece of that album, there's orchestral, and it has a big Eastern and world music feel to it in places where there's instruments like the sitar from India featured heavily in it. Please do have a listen to just little pieces of that album here and there. It's great music. I'm not asking you to do it as part of your prep or anything like that. It's just great to listen to. But the full album is there, and some pieces from that actual album are on the Leaving Cert music syllabus. Other songs that the Beatles recorded and incorporated orchestral instruments into: Penny Lane, there's a trumpet solo on that. All You Need Is Love has the brass section. A song called Eleanor Rigby, which only has stringed instruments instruments in it and vocals. There's no modern instruments. There's no drums, no guitar, no keyboards, no bass. So just a string quartet and voices. And then The Long and Winding Road, probably my own favourite Beatles song, has a beautiful blend of orchestral strings and pop music, pop band. Again, now here, again, this is where I'm going to show you another example of how modern pop music can blend with typical traditional orchestral instruments. This is Niall Horan. I'm sure you're all big One Direction fans. This is an album he made with the RTE Concert Orchestra, which is obviously an orchestra based in RTE. A fantastic orchestra, and really something that in Ireland we should be really very proud of. And here you and do watch this song. It's a very nice song, and you'll see how you got the band out front. We have drums, bass, an acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and modern kind of pop vocals. Drum kit with an orchestra in the background, and it works very well. So at this point now, will you pause the tutorial and look at that video? Okay, so guys, here is your prep. I will put this up on the Google Classroom. Now, I'm conscious that there was quite a bit of work went into last week's prep, so I'm going to go easy on you here. So find an example of each of the 4 families of instruments, that's strings, woodwind, brass, percussion, being incorporated into a modern band setting. The pieces you select do not have to feature every instrument of that family, and you can just feature one if you like. Do not choose the pieces already featured in this lesson. So for example, I'm asking you to look up a piece of music that features strings. And I played some of these examples for you in class a number of weeks ago. So for example, a band with a string section playing with it, or just a violin. It doesn't have to be the full family. The woodwind family, again, with a pop or a modern band playing. So a modern band would feature drums, guitar, bass. But let's say, for example, you can't find something with the entire woodwind family playing, and it would be hard to do that. You might pick one instrument from the woodwind family, like say a clarinet. Just to point out, this might be helpful when you're doing that, a saxophone is also considered a woodwind instrument. Do the same for the brass family, or an instrument from the brass family, and percussion, or an instrument from the percussion family. Do not choose the pieces already featured in this lesson. I'm going to now put that on the Google classwork page, and I'll put a note in the stream about it. Guys, please do keep in touch. I'm going to give you quite a bit of time to do this one. It's only 4 pieces you need to give me, just with the name of the composer and the name of the piece. So that won't take you long, guys. That's a very straightforward piece of prep for you, just because I know at the moment you're probably being bombarded with work being sent home, and there's a lot going on. So will you please do your best with this, and I'm going to extend the deadline. I'm going to give you quite a bit of time to do it. I'm going to give you over a week to do this one. Okay, guys, best of luck, and I hope you're all staying safe and well. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye now.